Well, things seem to be settling down a little bit in the Gaza Strip. There's a ceasefire, and there is some strong religious backing of that ceasefire. We'll see what happens. We're going to talk about that issue, where it goes next. We're going to talk with Ron Yarnell and also Kathleen McQuillan with American Friends Service Committee. Later in the show, I want to talk with you about the growing number of environmental protests across the globe.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Ed Fallon here, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe is your locally owned source for specialty groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the lively cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community.
Hello, Mid-American Energy.
I'm very concerned that you want to bill me an extra $5,000 to build a nuclear reactor. Do you know we're in the middle of a recession?
Oh, we were hoping you wouldn't hear about that until after the legislature had taken action.
Why not let your shareholders pick up the tab?
Oh, way too risky for our shareholders. We need you, our loyal customers, to pay for it.
Wait, let me see if I understand this. Mid-American wants to build a nuclear power plant in 10 or 20 years, and they want me to pay for it now?
That's right.
Well, I'll just take my business elsewhere.
Sorry, we're a monopoly. What we say goes.
I've heard nuclear power is more expensive than other sources.
Yes it is.
And I've heard there's no plan for how to dispose of nuclear waste.
We're looking at shooting it into the sun.
Well, I'm not going to sit back and let you make bad decisions with my money.
We're betting you will.
Stop Mid-American's power grab. Call your legislators today. 281-3371. 281-3371.
Paid for by Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Brother Trucker kicking us off here, folks, and Ron Yarnell in the studio with me, always liking to taunt me with some ridiculous New York sports team hat. This time he's got the Knicks on his head.
Hey, listen, your son, he was wearing a Patriots sweater the other day.
That's okay, that'll work.
No, that doesn't work at all.
It's my show.
Only because he spent long months at sea. Is that even least acceptable there?
Well, you know, his problem is he got to be a Patriots fan when he was at the Mass Maritime Academy studying to be a merchant marine, and it was a good time to be a Patriots fan. Actually, they were managing to win Super Bowls instead of going to them and then being beaten by narrow margins by the Giants. But let's not talk about that, shall we?
Well, my football season's over being a Jets fan. So I'm like,
no, your football season was over back in preseason.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the Knicks is the best you can muster.
Because the hockey season ain't even starting, except the local scene with the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. At what point do Major League Sports aficionados find it less profitable to strike than to try to come to any kind of resolution? I don't get that, but
you know, that's a topic for another show, maybe.
Right, because we're talking about Gaza, Palestine, Israel today. Kathleen McQuillan will be joining us later in the program. She is with the American Friends Service Committee. And folks, as always, you're welcome to join this conversation at 244-0077. That's local 244-0077 or toll free 855-244-0077. And you can also email me at fallonforum@gmail.com. I do want to thank Physicians for Social Responsibility and the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club for being sponsors of this program. I also want to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of our conversation. Later in the program, I do want to talk about some of the environmental protests that are taking off around the world. Seems to be a new focus and with new urgency. I also want to talk about the numbers. I want to respond to the guy who said, "Hey, Ed, I saw your YouTube video and you had like 20 hits or something like that. So your show must really suck or be irrelevant." I want to respond to that later in the program. But first, I want to welcome Ron, despite the fact that he's wearing a New York sports team hat, to the program, because Ron often has something astute and interesting to say about a variety of topics. And I'm interested in your take on the situation in Gaza, which has evolved since we first talked about having this conversation.
Well, what is Gaza?
A concentration camp, some would say.
It's at least the world's largest open-air prison. And is there a solution to Gaza in real terms? I mean, I know there's a ceasefire, but is there a solution there that anyone can possibly live with? Can the state of Israel?
You mean, is there a potential solution? Because right now it's obviously not a...
No, is there a potential solution?
Nothing workable about the current situation.
Does anyone really want a solution is what I'm trying to get at. You know, Zionism has an interesting history to it. It is a outgrowth of 19th century European romantic nationalism.
But it was justified. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
You being an Irish boy, me being part Irish, I'm good with 19th century European romantic nationalism to a certain extent. And basically, the idea was if people who speak the same language, have roughly the same customs, if they have their own state, then they can live normal lives, go about their business, be self-sufficient. Well, I don't think that's really come true for the state of Israel.
Well, and it's there's a lot of truth behind that, but there's also, within any population, there is often, usually perhaps, a minority group or several minority groups.
And that's the dark side, because the dark side of nationalism is you always need an other to beat the stuffing out of, to make it into the enemy, to blame for all your problems. And in the Israeli-Palestinian equation, the Palestinians have become that other for Israel. And
as the Jews had become in many countries for a long, long time. It's not hard to have empathy for the Jewish people. I mean, they really have had a hard lot historically.
The question for the Jewish people is that, in my view, and I'm an outsider, I'm not Jewish, to me, Judaism, by its biblical origins, has to end in justice. Otherwise, it's not Judaism. It's something else.
Right, and some might argue, well, for the Jewish people.
Well,
and then not look any further than that.
And in biblical terms, justice is not just for the Jewish people, but also for the neighbors of the Jewish people. So then the question is, how does the state of Israel, a nation state, and nation states have their own logic, they have their own rhyme or reason, and they're usually nation states are basically survival of the fittest entities. They exist not because anyone gives them a right, but because they can beat the stuffing out of weaker neighbors. You laugh, but that's...
Well, no, but it's a good point. I'm laughing not because I disagree, but because I think your hat looks silly, but it's a good point.
The existential threat to the Jewish people is that the state of Israel, is it a instrument for justice, or is it, as our friend Bradshaw might say, just a colossal case of FYIGM? We got our country, and you can whatever.
You can go look for yours somewhere else. Okay,
right.
Well,
and it's also based on nationalist myths.
Yeah,
and it's, for example, until very late, Israelis, even nice, we're kind of focused on the religious types, but even the secular labor types never acknowledged Palestinians as a legitimate people. They were just people who were there. They were kind of
secular labor types within Israel.
People like Golda Meir.
Okay.
The Palestinians were just like, they were inconvenient people. They were people who were there. What are we going to do with these? If you look at early Zionist writings, the term Red Indians is used to describe the mentality towards the Palestinians.
Red?
As in North American.
Right, I got that part, but I'm trying to think how that applies.
So what's the paradigm being set up here?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm a card-carrying pacifist, okay? I'm a member of pacifist organizations. I think violence never accomplishes any good. And so I say this with some level of dread. If it wasn't for Palestinian activism, even violent activism, to this day, Israel would have no reason to even acknowledge Palestinians as a people. Okay?
So you're saying that because of the violence that Palestinians have been willing to resort to.
I'm not endorsing the violence. I'm not condoning it.
Well, that sounds like an endorsement to me.
No, it's not, because I think that the violence has led the Palestinians into a cul-de-sac that they can't get out of.
But you're saying they wouldn't even be there if they hadn't engaged in some violence.
The Israelis wouldn't even acknowledge them. There'd be no reason to acknowledge
them. But I mean,
is
that to say that India would not have exist as an independent country?
Different deal. Okay. I think I don't want.
So the nonviolence that worked in India and worked in our own country in the civil rights struggle wouldn't work in Palestine.
It might if that's where you're going, but you have to remember the state of Israel in its origin was also an act of violence. I mean, if you want to talk about terrorism, you have to go to organizations like the Irgun, who were pretty ferocious terrorists. If you ever read the book, Oh, Jerusalem, great book. Mm-hmm. And it's a very pro-Israel book. But how did the Irgun retaliate? They packed explosives and metal scrap into a barrel, went down the road, and when they passed a market area or a bus stop, lit the fuse, kicked the barrel off, it went boom. You know, violence begets violence, and in this area of the world, no one comes off as Mother Teresa. It just doesn't happen.
All right. Well, it's hard to know. You can't, but you've got to say this, and I think I concur that of those who criticize Hamas that they have used violence. Clearly,
but you know how Hamas got into its current position. In the 80s, the Israelis had an idea. Now, smile if you think this sounds familiar. Let's back the Muslim extremists because we can triangulate them against the PLO. And that way we can divide and conquer. And so the Israelis got involved in covert operations to prop up Hamas because they figured that would undermine Arafat and the PLO. And to a certain extent, it worked. And guess what? Today, Israel's reaping the benefits. Now, I want to go back because I'm really bothered by the sense that I might be perceived as a person who endorses violence, because I don't. I believe violence only goes to violence. But violence, on the other hand, it is how nation states operate. It is how they get their way. And it's just, as long as justice in that area is about a state of Israel and an organization, Hamas, which has pretensions of political power, I don't know how they're going to break out of the violent cycle. I couldn't tell you. I think it's just going to go on, and it will serve the purpose of cynical people on both sides. Because Israel, Netanyahu needs a bad guy, got him in Hamas, and the Hamas need bad guys, got him in Israel. So they're just stuck.
Yeah.
And I think what makes the matter worse is that Israel has this umbilical cord to the United States, and we certainly don't.
A pretty pricey umbilical cord,
really
too.
Pricey. We don't know what to do with the situation. We don't even particularly like any of these people. Okay, but we're tied to their activities, and it's creating a really dysfunctional relationship between Israel and the United States.
Folks, Ron Yarnell and myself talking about Israel-Palestine, the recent developments in Gaza. You're welcome to join the conversation at 244-0077. Later in the program, Kathleen McQuillan with the American Friends Service Committee will be joining us. Let's go to our phone lines. Frank from Des Moines is with us. You're going to need you need to cover up that Knicks hat after all there, Ron. Hello, Frank. Welcome to the show.
Well, hi, Ed.
How are you?
Yeah. What was that you studied in college?
Religion, music, philosophy, and Spanish. None of it relevant to any of my professional life.
Did you read the story of David and Goliath?
I I continue to reenact it every day.
Okay, well, Goliath was the representative of what group? The Palestinians?
Philistines.
Philistines? Same group.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, in other words, the United States and Britain has set Israel back up in the promised land, falsely, I might say. But nonetheless, they've set them up. And you've locked two people in a room that have natural enmity against one another, can't stand each other's guts, and you expect them to get along.
Well, you know what? I do, because in my life, in my short half a century on this planet, two apparently intractable conflicts, one in South Africa, the other in Northern Ireland, have, well, there's still some work to be done, but for all intents and purposes, those conflicts are resolved. Nobody ever saw the day with Jerry Adams and Ian Paisley would sit down at the same table. I don't think anybody saw a day when Nelson Mandela would go from being a prisoner for 30 years to being the president of South Africa. So yeah, I do have hope, and I do believe that Palestine and Israel can resolve this conflict.
I'd also like to weigh in that, at least in the late 40s, the British were very opposed to a state of Israel. In fact, British officers served in part of the Arab armies that invaded Israel in 1948. They officered the Arab Legion.
But I don't disagree with Frank. I think Britain and the U.S. to some extent did help enable the establishment of the state of Israel. And Britain has a long history of dividing and conquering, not just in Ireland with bringing Scotsmen,
Israel has,
but also in India. I mean, India, you would not have had the existence. Pakistan and Bangladesh would not have existed without the British exacerbating a conflict between the Hindus and the Muslims.
Orthodox Israel believes that basically this land has been promised to them by God. It was the land that was promised to them through Abraham.
Yeah, we kind of believe that about our own country, Manifest Destiny.
And so you've got people as they see it, you got the unbeliever in the house of Abraham, and they don't like it. I don't understand how you think this is ever going to be settled. There's no solution to that problem over there.
Well, first of all, Frank, Palestinians also consider themselves to be children of Abraham. In fact, the interesting thing about the struggle, it's really it's a family struggle, which makes it all the more complicated. It's a family struggle over an inheritance. Because the Palestinians, being Arabs, are Semitic people, and the Jewish people are Semitic people as well.
Well, obviously, because Abraham had two children, one that he shouldn't even have had because of his disbelief and rebellion in God. Ishmael was born, and that is the root of the whole problem. And God promised that He didn't just discard Ishmael and Hagar, the mother. He said, "You'll be a great nation." But I don't know how you expect that. There's natural enmity between Isaac's but people,
again,
and between Ishmael's people and these people.
So Frank, if you were Secretary of State or the President of the U.S. or a leader in either Palestine or in Israel, you would just throw up your hands and say, "Hey, guess we can't solve this problem.
Well, no,
Keep on fighting."
I think you got to separate the parties. I don't think you can have the parties under the same roof and expect them to get along.
So you support a two-state solution, as does Israel, and as I believe does
some kind of state, but I don't know that I support two states under the same roof. You know what I'm saying?
Because if you have two states, you would have different roofs.
Hey, how did it go over with the Civil War here in the U.S. trying to have two nations under the same roof? And it's not going to work over there. And your guest, he says, well, while I don't advocate violence, he seems to excuse it.
No, I don't excuse violence, Frank. Because violence is its own end. Violence only begets violence.
Yes, but you say, I don't.
This is what I said, Frank. What I said was that the Palestinians, as a recognized people, were not even on the radar of Israeli leaders until after a long, violent struggle.
But did you throw a but in there?
What but did I throw in
I don't
there?
know. You said but. I don't excuse violence, but.
But that's the case. The Israeli leaders did not acknowledge Palestinians even as a legitimate people.
See, I understand what he's saying, Frank. I mean, I am unlike Ron. I am not a pacifist. I am a believer that violence is almost always wrong, but I would not go so far as to say it never is needed. And I look at World War II as an example. I do not see how we would have stopped Hitler without some kind of armed response. But that said, violence is almost always not the best answer. It certainly isn't the best answer in Israel and Palestine.
I don't see how you can put a rattlesnake and some other some other predator in the same
scorpion?
cage.
Let's go with scorpion.
Okay, a rattlesnake and a scorpion. How do you put that in a cage and expect there to be a different result than somebody dying? I mean, in other words, you've got a situation over there that it's untenable for what's going on. There's going to be no winner. And
Frank, I just got to say, look at South Africa, look at Northern Ireland, and keep hope alive. I got to go to a break,
okay.
Frank.
All right, thanks.
Do you want to stay on hold?
Sure.
Okay, we'll leave you on hold.
All right.
Because someday Frank is going to get a computer and enter the 21st century like the rest of us. I got to go to a break. I want to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of our program. Gateway is at 20th and Woodland in the Sherman Hill neighborhood on the edge of downtown Des Moines. That's our neighborhood grocery store, folks, and they have all the stuff you could possibly need. They get a lot of it from local sources, and of course, they are locally owned, so they keep their money in the local community. So, Black Friday, horrible idea. Shopping at Gateway Market, great idea. Not just for groceries, but also you can have breakfast, lunch, supper there, and they will serve your catering needs as well. Check them out at 20th and Woodland. That's Gateway Market, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Kathleen McQuillan with American Friends Service Committee will be joining us as well.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm a burrito.
I'm a fighting burrito, full of fresh ingredients prepared before your very eyes.
I don't have eyes.
I have over 28 options and 268 million combinations, including Rizo for vegetarians.
I can take my meat off and call myself vegetarian.
Put that back on. The Fighting Burrito is locally owned.
I'm owned by some big corporation somewhere. Say, you want to go on a date?
No thanks. I'm seeing a quesadilla.
The Fighting Burrito online, fightingburrito.com. Join the fight.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
Host is a locally owned restaurant in downtown Des Moines that focuses its food and philosophy on embracing simplicity. The majority of Host's food is from local farmers who practice sustainable and health-conscious agriculture. Much of what you'll find on your plate is a familiar comfort food, presented with a modern and tasty interpretation. Host is open for lunch Monday through Friday from 11 to 2, and also available for private dinner events and special themed dinners throughout the month. So, check out Host at 13th and Locust in Des Moines.
I love driving to Newton to see the races.
Me too, but I only have to drive across town.
You live in Newton?
Yep, Newton's got small town charm and it's close to Des Moines. I love the safe, friendly neighborhoods and family-owned businesses. And Newton's wind energy industry is really taking off.
How'd you find your home?
Dan Kelly with First Choice Realty. And Dan helped me find my office too.
Next time, instead of just speeding by, I'll stop in and check out Newton.
Why don't you check out Newton? Call Dan Kelly at 641-521-9260 or Dan Kelly at mchsi.com.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
Well, hi, I'm Rob Spearman. I'm a broker-owner of RE/MAX Real Estate Concepts in Des Moines, Iowa. Give us a call if you're looking at buying or selling a home, or if you're having trouble on your mortgage payments or looking to purchase foreclosures. We have the agents to help you, experienced, outstanding agents. Our office number is 515-276-2872. Or if you'd like to look at homes, go to our website, homeconnectusa.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
My little apple right there, Yeah, I like this thing. It's not a bad little computer, folks. I want to thank Proof Restaurant for sponsoring this segment of our program. Kathleen McQuillan has joined us in the studio. She's with American Friends Service Committee. Later in the show, I've got some other business to take up with y'all, but we're still talking about Gaza, and you're welcome to join the conversation. 244-0077. That's 855 if you want to make it toll-free, 855-244-0077. Yeah, I want to talk about the question of, is this show and this type of media relevant? I want to talk about that. And also about the growing number of environmental protests in the world. Interesting stuff. But with me, someone who works on this issue, I think even in her sleep, Kathleen McQuillan. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Ed. Nice to be here.
Good. And your position with AFSC is?
Iowa Program Coordinator.
Okay. And what is your take on? I mean, it's been some very interesting developments. One, the ceasefire. Mm-hmm. And which I noticed, by the way, that the crazies on right-wing radio, Limbaugh was maligning folks for reaching a ceasefire. I mean, how irrelevant is this guy? Yeah. Maligning Hillary Clinton and all the other players who are coming to a peaceful agreement. So there's that, but there's also the whole issue of the clerical leader, the Muslim clerical leader in Gaza, saying, "Yeah, this is not just a good idea. This is now a requirement, a religious requirement that you observe the ceasefire."
Well, that's fascinating. To tell you the truth, I didn't know that. Yeah, I hadn't heard that. So that could be a very good development. In all of these conversations, I just have to start with because it's not addressed. I have to start with the idea that all this is taking place under an occupation. And so when you talk about somebody like Rush Limbaugh talking about, the ceasefire should or shouldn't take place, is he also talking about this is a land under siege? People are not allowed in or out. People are not getting adequate supplies or food. They haven't even rebuilt from the 2008 cast lead operation.
Right.
So, yeah, a ceasefire is such a welcome. But we hope it's real. We hope it, and some of the first indications are that it's going to include language about opening up some. It doesn't count. Well, it's not a ceasefire if they don't take some opening of the gates.
With the new government in Egypt, isn't there a greater possibility that you'll see some cooperation from that direction in terms of allowing supplies, food, clothing, whatnot into Gaza?
That's what we're looking for. But then he did this other thing with declaring he can rule over all courts, and so I think it's still within Egypt. So it's still questionable what this person's going to do and how much power he's going to have. I mean, there was interest in opening the gates because the people in Egypt were demanding it. But where are the people in Egypt going to be now? And they were so behind him when he played an important role in this ceasefire. But I think we have to wait and see what's going to happen as far as where his support's going to be now with this court ruling.
Recent history is against a ceasefire holding for very long. And again, what if? Let me ask you this, and this is to Ron's perspective as a pacifist. What if Hamas decided not to lob any weapons toward Egypt at all? Sorry, toward Israel. Whoa, that was a bad slip. Toward Israel. I mean, with that, I'm not saying that anything justifies what Israel did in Palestine this past week.
Would it make a difference?
But would that totally remove any justification for Israel to have any kind of military response against Gaza? And would it help solidify public opinion in support of the Palestinians?
Well, two things. One, I think it depends on what Israel's objectives are. And I don't think we know that. One of their great leaders of the peace movement from 1948, Uri Averny, sorry, but a Jewish real leader in that part of the country for an alternate view of the world, is arguing that we don't know Israel's objectives. And Israel's objectives, as was written back in 1948, was to control the land between the river and the sea.
Right. Well, isn't their objective? I mean, don't objectives vary depending on who you're talking with? But the more extreme objective is to control the entire land that was seen as being promised to them thousands of years ago.
Right. That is the extreme objective. And is that an objective? I mean, we can't really say for sure, but we can say when there have been past ceasefires or past agreements, it has tended to be Israel who has sort of provoked an action, killing one person and then an extreme action perhaps from Hamas and then an extremer action from Israel. So, I mean, and this goes on. We just went through what was this thing called the Pillar of Defense or something. Before that, there was, Kessled. But in between, there was autumn rain and fall something. So Israel keeps finding a reason to attack. Now, would there be more support within this country if Hamas would stop firing? There could be, but there would also be more support if the truth were known. If there were more conversation about what this really is about.
I think, Kathleen, that you really hit upon something when you talk about use language as blockade or siege, because I think that's one of the miscalculations or misunderstandings of what's going on. Mm-hmm. Israel has Gaza under siege, and putting a place under siege by itself without firing a shot is an act of war. Mm-hmm. And sieges are awful. They're the most cruel form of warfare. And we only have to refer back to the 1990s leading up to the Iraq War in 2003 when we had Iraq, the country of Iraq, under siege. And it's estimated, someone made the estimate that 500,000 Iraqi children who would otherwise have survived died in that period of time. Yeah. And this was brought to the attention of Madeleine Albright, and she responded by saying, well, that's the price of freedom and democracy.
Ouch.
Yes.
Which is really great when when it's other people making that sacrifice.
Right. Yeah. And I understand a recent military report came out from inside Israel talking about them weighing how much food to keep people from actually starving, and that's sort of what they're allowing in and out. So let's get
how's that for freedom?
To starvation,
let
not
another country make a decision on what your nutrient intake should be every day.
Yes.
Right.
And so 50% unemployment rate on top of the regular issues around hunger and house demolitions and not being able to rebuild since 2008.
Well, let me ask this. I mean, I have Jewish friends who agree that a two-state solution is needed, but I'm starting to wonder whether that makes any sense. Practically speaking, where is the second state? Is Palestine on the West Bank or Gaza on the West Bank, I presume? Mm-hmm. I mean, we see how well, a country separated by another country works out. Look at Pakistan and Bangladesh. And there are other examples. So I don't know if that's a realistic possibility. And maybe this is the American in me who looks around and sees a country that is about as diverse as any in the world. And yeah, we have our problems, but overall, compared to a lot of other places in the world, we get along pretty well with each other. I'm not saying there isn't racism or various types of class conflict, but yeah, we get along reasonably well compared to other parts of the world. Right. Is there any hope that a Palestinian minority could function, could survive, could achieve equality within an Israel, a primarily Jewish Israeli state?
Do you mean as if we move then to a one-state solution?
Right. Is there any hope for that?
Well, I think what we hear from the Israelis is, and what is very likely, is soon Israel or the Jewish people would be the minority, and which is one of the problems of why Israel does not want a one-state solution. And others say Israel already is a one-state. There is the West Bank under Israeli control, Gaza under siege, and then the rest of Palestine. But Israel really controls all of it.
So how does that work? I mean, throughout history, new races of people move into areas. I mean, look at my own people, the Irish. You know, what does it mean to be a pure Irish person? Well, does it mean to be Celtic or pre-Celtic, or what about the Norman influence? What about the Spanish influence because of the sinking of the Armada? What about the British influence? And now you've got a situation that because of enrollment in the European Union, they say that less than half of the people living in Ireland by the middle of this century will have been what has historically been considered more Celtic descent. And so, I mean, everywhere in the world that happens.
Except in Israel. Israel is defined as a Jewish state.
Right.
So what does that mean when it's no longer dominated by a Jewish ethnically or theologically?
And that's a question that is also part of the mix, because Jews themselves or Israelis themselves haven't come up with a definition of what it means to be an Israeli, what it means to be a Jewish person that everyone is satisfied with.
Because there are plenty of folks who are strictly culturally Jewish but really don't practice.
Well, Israel is a secular state. I think that needs to be recalled. And actually, prior to 1948, the Orthodox establishment, the religious establishment, was vehemently opposed to Zionism. They saw Zionism as a blasphemy because the Jewish state wasn't supposed to be reestablished until the coming of the Messiah. But with the coming of the state of Israel, the Orthodox authorities made a deal with the state: give us a religious monopoly, and we'll be okay with the state. Now, not all Orthodox groups accepted that. But right now, I think the only legitimate form of Judaism, religious Judaism in Israel, is Orthodoxy. That's kind of an interesting. I don't think most people even know that.
Yeah.
That if you're a conservative or Reform Jew, you have no religious identity in Israel.
Well, let me ask this: what do you say to the folks who say in Israel that they accuse Hamas and others of not recognizing Israel's right to exist? Right to exist as a nation. I mean, what do you say to that?
I mean, yeah, we certainly hear that a lot. And I don't, to me, yeah, it's in their charter. Some things have stayed in charters forever. However, I think what matters is what happens on the ground. Can you negotiate? Can you work together? Right now, they've had this ceasefire that acknowledges they're dealing, although I think they were dealing through Egypt, but nonetheless, that's moving in the direction. So it matters what happens on the ground. The other thing, before we got too far off the point, I wanted to mention when we think about the demographics in Israel. Right now, 20% of the population is Arab, and they do not have the same rights. I'm talking inside Israel proper, and they do not have the same rights.
Arab and primarily Muslim.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And there's a percentage that's Christian as well.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, I think that's important that we understand that already the rights are denied to Arabs that within the state that are open to Jewish people.
So what about the question of recognizing Israel's right to exist, Ron?
No nation state has the right to exist. You won't find that anywhere in international law. Because if you did, you know what? The Kurds and the Tibetans and any number of other minority groups, they really would want that invoked on their behalf, that they have a right to exist as a state.
And probably many Native American nations as well.
Yeah, the Lakota Sioux would be glad to know that they have the right to exist as a sovereign, independent nation. Nation states exist because they can marshal enough violent power to basically beat the stuffing out of anyone who disagrees. I'm serious. I mean, it sounds funny, but Mexico and Canada, you will not find any document where Mexican authorities or Canadian authorities grant the United States the right to exist. We do because we muscled it out. That's it. It sounds...
so Israel does not have the right to exist.
There is no right to exist for any nation state. Nation states exist because they can marshal enough violence so that anyone disputes them, well, try to make something of it.
Kathleen, is that more candor than we can tolerate in a diplomatic discussion?
Yeah, I wonder because I would think Israel was basically established through UN processes. However, so too was Palestinian people given a right to a state. Now, it hasn't happened, but through if we want to move away from this only answer being beating the stuffing out of somebody, and it would be nice to think we can. I'm not sure we're there, but we can use the UN for those purposes. And so the UN has acknowledged that Palestine has a right, that the Palestinian people have a right to a state.
And where do they stand on the Kurds?
On the Kurds?
Just as an example.
I don't know that I've heard that come up. I mean, it's not one I followed. But one other thing about this language about the right to, one of the things that I find extremely disturbing in this country is this language about Israel's right to exist, meaning when Palestinians use rockets, it's all right for Israel to go in with all these missiles, with this extreme overkill, and attack them under some guidelines that the U.S. resolutions keep saying they have a right to defend themselves. But there's no language in there about the Palestinians' right to food, the right to freedom of movement, the right to, the land that had been promised to them. The West Bank is now so small. As you said, how do you build a state out of this? And that's a good question. The possibility of land trades, could there be, so that we could actually connect Gaza with and give up some other piece of land, so that Gaza and the West Bank could be connected?
Now, this is a great conversation, and an important one, and I really hope that we're going to get to the point where we're going to see that kind of progress in Gaza, in Israel, Palestine, as we have seen in Northern Ireland and in South Africa. I do want to take one more call before we got to go to a break. 244-0077. If you don't make it into this segment of the show, you're welcome to call during the final segment where I'm going to talk about some other stuff. But let's go to Jeffrey. Jeffrey Weiss is with us. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Ed, good show. Quickly, I just wanted to question what Kathleen's saying is right on. The Palestinians are the only people in the world who have, according to UN resolutions, a right to self-determination, meaning a state of their own, similar to the South Africans, what they had, or the Namibians. The Kurds don't have it. The Chechens don't have it. The Basque people in Spain don't have it. You can go down the line, and that's really what makes their situation unique.
And so the fact that they have it in theory but not in practice is what makes
and more and more
unique.
Palestinians are now don't want a two-state solution. They're seeing the writing on the wall. There's 500 to 600,000 Israelis in the West Bank.
Well, that's kind of where I'm heading too. I mean, and when I ran for Congress, that was my position running for Congress was I supported a two-state solution. But the more I think about it, the more I see how things are evolving, the more questions I have about whether that would work.
Yeah, well, it's probably not impossible now because of the facts on the ground in the West Bank, meaning that more and more Israelis and Palestinians are drawing the territory for a one state.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly think that's possible. At the same time, we, AFSC, hesitates to take that position because too many Palestinians still want a two-state. And I wanted to say one more thing about the U.S. position. When you talk about some of the other problems that seem so intractable and have since been resolved, I don't think the United States was playing as negative a role as they're playing in the Israel-Palestine conflict. Not only because they continue to fund the occupation with $3 to $4 billion a year, but every time the UN tries to hold Israel to account for its war crimes, the United States vetoes it. So we're playing a very negative role there that makes us even more intractable.
Let me ask all three of you one more question that fascinates me. Is Hamas a terrorist organization?
I would expect that it is, that it has been so labeled, and it's a violent organization. It also was elected by its own people because it was also the only entity that was able to make some progress for them. They were also a food program. They were also a services program.
Ron, same question.
You're always a terrorist organization until you get your seat at the United Nations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good one.
So they are, but that doesn't disturb you.
It disturbs me a lot, but that's the nature of a nation state. Okay, every terrorist organization is a terrorist organization until they get a piece of land of their own. They chase people they don't like out of it, and they get a seat at the United Nations, and then they become a sovereign nation.
I would not hesitate to say that the IDF is also a terrorist organization. So yes, these violent organizations.
Jeff, same question. If you want to take a crack at it. Oh, we lost him. He ran away before he had to answer the question. Hard to blame him. My take, yes. Any organization, I'm not sure if I'd agree with you entirely, Ron, but any organization that uses violence and that does so in a manner that is sometimes indiscriminate, in other words, that kills people that have no involvement in the conflict, is a terrorist organization. And I take issue. I am often appalled at the extent to which Irish Americans who really have not spent a lot of time in Ireland support the IRA. The IRA, in my opinion, is a terrorist organization. I know that from when I was 8 years old, traveling in Northern Ireland, and how disturbed I was because my mother saw a man with a gun holding a limp woman in a ditch outside of Belfast. Yeah, I know that because I had a friend in Ireland, from Northern Ireland, whose mother and sister were blown up in a pub. There was another guy from Northern Ireland who I had to escort to a mental hospital in Dublin. I was the one who committed him because of his distress at the conflict between the IRA and the Protestant forces.
Could I add to that?
So I'm just saying, yeah.
I just want to add one note. Bill Clinton facilitated the Good Friday Accords, and that was great, and because he sat down Jerry Adams and Ian Paisley at the White House. But what inadvertently happened was that Sinn Féin was given a great deal of credibility that it didn't have before, and it undermined the SDNLP, which is the Social Democrat and Labor Party, which was based on the 1960s civil rights nonviolent movement.
And I have no trouble with Sinn Féin having political credibility. And again, Sinn Féin is the political wing of the IRA and really the dominant element of that initiative right now.
But
I have no trouble with that.
But it goes to the point that, and I hate this point, but violence will all. Because you would think that the nonviolent civil disobedient movement, the SDNLP, they would be the part, and they did so much work over decades to bring about this peace, and they have been relegated to second place.
I think the only reason that nonviolence isn't given as much credit for helping to direct, international policy as violence is because it didn't try often enough. Nonviolence is the usual means that folks resort to. Sorry, violence is usually the means that folks resort to.
The greatest myth is that, or the greatest fallacy is that violence leads to peace.
I would just say that there are many, many organizations inside Palestine and Israel who are working nonviolently to end this. I would say they're also not covered.
Right, and you also are working on trying to get Central Iowans involved in work relevant to Gaza. So, what can people do to get in touch with you and to get involved with that effort?
Yeah, well, certainly they could check our website, afsc.org/Iowa.
AFSC, as an American Friends Service Committee.
Right.
.org/Iowa.
/Iowa, right. Because we want to hear from people. How do we contribute in a positive way to this? Are there some relief efforts we should be undertaking? Are there conversations with our congresspeople that we should be having? Should the faith community be involved? When we look at positive efforts, the faith movement has been strong in saying this occupation has to end in order to have peace. Good. So we're looking to build relationships with all of those.
All right. Kathleen McQuillan, folks, and Ron Yarnell joining me here. Thanks so much, folks. I appreciate your insights and your time. And thanks to those who took the time to call. We've got some more conversation, though, before the show wraps up here. I want to respond to the critics who say that this type of media is irrelevant. I also want to talk about some of the growing environmental protests around the world. And I want to thank Proof Restaurant for sponsoring this segment of our show. Gosh, folks, you got to go to Proof if you have not been to Proof. If you silly people in the studio have not been to Proof, you need to do that. It's really amazing what they've been able to do with local foods. And with a very creative kitchen staff. I can't remember what I had last time, but I had the steak. Okay, all my vegetarian friends are going to cringe when I say that, but comes with Yukon potatoes, caramelized mushrooms, and shallots, capers. Didn't even know what capers were, and parsley salad. It was really awesome, folks. I highly recommend you checking out Proof. They're now open Wednesday through Saturday at 13th and Locust. Again, the great lunchtime menu that's gotten a lot of national renown. But supper ought to be getting the same renown because it really is an incredible experience. So check them out, folks, Wednesday through Saturday, Proof Restaurant at 13th and Locust. I'll be back in a minute.
From From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day one of WebcastOneLive.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
Hi, folks. It's Ed Fallon here. Proof Restaurant at 13th and Locust. You've probably been there for their award-winning, nationally recognized lunch specials. And here's where the chefs really get creative. Let me tell you, they're like artists, okay? I've been there, and it is one of the best meals I have had in Des Moines. I've heard that from other people. You got to check it out. Proof for supper. Do not assume you can get in. Make reservations. Contact Proof Restaurant online at proofrestaurant.com or 244-0655. That's 244-0655.
This is Dr. Holding of the Story County Veterinary Clinic. For 15 years, we have been spaying and neutering feral cat groups at affordable prices. Wild cats destroy game birds and songbirds. A single female cat can produce over 4,000 kittens in 7 years. The shelters are full, so unwanted kittens will be put to sleep. Your cats will stay home and stay healthy. Call us for all your dog and cat needs at the Story County Veterinary Clinic between Ames and Nevada on Highway 30, 1 mile east of Interstate 35, 515-232-8766.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
More than ever, average Americans are being squeezed by high energy prices. For decades, oil companies like British Petroleum have demanded access to the oil off America's coasts, and they even receive taxpayer subsidies. Yet increased drilling won't solve America's energy problem. It will only increase oil industry profits. The Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club supports clean energy solutions, energy efficiency, and conservation as the pathway that's best for America, both for our environment and our economy. For more information, go to iowa.sierraclub.org. That's iowa.sierraclub.org.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Brazilians with Guy Fawkes's Fox masks. How cool is that? And how cool is Pumptown for their tuned bicycle, bringing us back to our final few minutes of the program here. I want to thank Reynolds Energy Solutions for sponsoring this part of the show. Reynolds Energy Solutions will do an audit for you. It will cost you nothing, and yet it will tell you lots of things that you need to know about how to save energy and save money. You will reduce your carbon footprint, sleep better at night knowing that you become a great steward of the environment. And again, it costs you nothing. You'll also be helping to support one of the businesses that support this alternative to Crazy Talk Radio. Anyway, I do want to talk a little bit more about that alternative, but I got a Black Friday. I don't know how many of you went out there on Black Friday. I did on Saturday. I went to Valley Junction to support the local business movement. I was disappointed to see there wasn't more people there. But gosh, Black Friday, look at some of the stuff happening around the country. This is craziness. Oh, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, that's that. I can't remember. I think that's Walmart. Okay. Zero cops showed up at that one. Oh, but look at this. Plenty of police here for us nonviolent protesters at the Occupy movement. There are some videos. I would love to have time to play you a couple videos of Walmart protests and Walmart activity inside the store with people just going crazy over phones and stuff. I mean, I just do not get the appeal. It makes me embarrassed for my fellow Americans to see that kind of behavior. Okay, so anyway, to those who say to me, Ed, you know, I go to YouTube and I see that there have been 20, 30, 40, 50 people watching your show. Oh, so it must be pretty irrelevant, and that's kind of poor. Okay, you can't just look at the YouTube count. You got to consider the online audience and then all the other websites that track this show and people viewing on those websites. And it's about 1,300 people per show. So I want to thank you if you're one of those 1,300 people. And that's a 20% increase over those over the same figure earlier this year. Now, again, alternative media, we need it desperately because more and more, again, talk radio is just a lost cause. Two corporations pretty much own almost all of what you're going to hear on commercial radio, and it's all the same ilk, all right? Whether it's local or national, it's all the same perspective. There's no diversity, nothing even resembling a moderate or progressive or liberal voice is in that mix. And again, much of the corporate media beyond that, beyond newspapers, TVs, is not going to cover the stuff that you're going to get on shows like this. So we've got a pretty good network of ways of communicating: a good email list, Facebook page, a website, a database, and I've got a. How many shows on radio have a bike that talks, a talking bike? Huh?
I don't know. None. Yours. One.
Right. I think you're the only talking bike that I know.
I'm probably the reason you get so many viewers. I'm very charismatic. You're
a little charismatic. Don't let it go to your head. And you are a little bit up there in years. I mean,
well, age equals beauty in this case.
All right, we're going to go with that.
Mental beauty.
And every once in a while, my bike has an astute observation to make about policy. Anyway, I'm just curious. Black Friday, any thoughts on Black Friday bike?
Oh, goodness. It's just scary. I didn't go out, obviously.
Now, you would have been run over by an SUV. There's absolutely no doubt that you would have been crushed.
People die all the time, and it's ridiculous. It's pointless.
Yeah, they had a Walmart worker killed a few years ago by a stampeding crowd.
Oh, there's stories about it all over the country, not just Walmart, but there's like 3 or 4 every year. It's just someone gets trampled, and it's completely stupid, like they couldn't wait in line or something.
All right. Well, be careful out there. The other thing I've got going for me on this program is a flock of chickens that helps develop program content. How many talk shows have chickens helping them develop program content, okay? Now, there's also Bradshaw. Stay tuned for Bradshaw, by the way. He'll be with you from 1:30 to 2:30 today, as he is every day. Also, check out some of the great local blogs. Bigfoot Diaries. My friend Troy Church has done a great job at creating that venue. Also, Bleeding Heartland. And John Deeth out of Iowa City. There are some great local opportunities to get a perspective on the political scene, on issues that you aren't going to hear in the corporate press. So anyway, yeah, we're not only relevant, folks, we're really, really important. And I have a feeling this is going to get bigger because more and more people are getting dissatisfied with what's available on the corporate side of things. Okay, so looking ahead, tomorrow Adam Mason with Iowa CCI is going to join me. We're going to talk about the water quality report put together by Farm Bureau and Big Ag. Oh, wait, no, it was Governor Branstad and Bill Northey. Anyway, Farm Bureau did help write part of it, apparently. We're also going to talk tomorrow with Channing Dutton, a local attorney who is passionate about climate change. We're going to discuss the new polling numbers regarding public opinion on climate change. Wednesday, Adil Khan is going to join me. He's a local activist with the Liberty PAC. He's a big fan of Ron Paul. I've got mixed feelings about the guy, but we're going to talk about the Ron Paul phenomenon. Look at some clips from Ron Paul's speech before the U.S. House as he was ending his tenure as a congressman.
and also talk about the continued relevance of the Ron Paul revolution and, more broadly, the viability of third parties moving forward. Also, Wednesday, we're going to talk with Lisa Bean about the Iowa Food Co-op. Thursday, having won his re-election pretty handily, State Representative Dan Kelly will be back with us, and we're going to talk about what types of mischief to expect at the State House this coming session. And then Friday, I've got a lot of things I want to go over. I'm looking for some guests on these topics, but plenty to cover. Who knows what might come up between now and Friday, but I definitely want to talk about the obesity epidemic, the anemic BP oil settlement, the so-called fiscal cliff, and how that could be a real problem for working people, and the special election for the Iowa Senate in West Des Moines, Dallas County. Desmond Adams and a fellow I'm not familiar with, to the point where I can't tell you his name, but I will know that and hopefully have some dialogue, maybe from each candidate, or each campaign at least, by Friday. So stay tuned for that. Again, on the environmental front, folks, we need to talk more about this. But in Greece, folks are protesting the construction of a resort. In France, protesters are squatting in treetop tents. We thought we were tough here with occupied tents on the ground. These folks in France are up in the trees. They're making makeshift shelters that are. It's part of this this battle against French government efforts to destroy a woodland that's very, very much valued by the people, apparently. And there's also in Greece a protest against gold mines. I mean, everywhere you turn, there are environmental efforts citizen efforts to protest environmental degradation, and we certainly have that in this country as well. I'll tell you what, we need more of that. We need more protests against environmental destruction, and we need more political candidates and political leaders who make environmental preservation a key cornerstone of their initiative. Folks, I want to thank you for joining us again. Stay tuned for Bradshaw. I'll be back with you tomorrow.
Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I'm administrative manager.
I'm the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going, though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed rider, it's free or 100% money back.
Enough said.